welcome back to a new video. Today we're going to talk about how to pass the NASM CPT exam. These videos helped me so much when I was studying, and I wish that there was more that I could binge watch, especially in 2021 and with the remote exam option. So today I'm going to break this video down into 4 different parts. We're going to start with general information, and then we're going to do study tips, what's on the exam, which is probably why you're all here, and then I'm going to end with a little bit of my remote proctored exam experience. And if you like this video and want to subscribe, that would be amazing. And let's just get into it. I have my laptop right here that I'm going to keep referring to if you guys keep seeing me look over at something. But I just wanted to be as specific as possible. I'm going to give you guys chapters and page numbers. So where to begin? I bought the NASM guided study package, and I also bought it with my nutrition coach certification. I knew I wanted to do both, and I actually called and talked to somebody and they said it would be way cheaper to get them together. So that's what I ended up doing. A little tip for you is I would call and make sure that there's no sales going on or deals on the specific certification that you want. And maybe they can help you, and they can also walk you through what each package includes, whether the self-study or the guided study might be better for you in your timeline. As I said, I ended up doing the guided study, and I thought it was great. It really broke it down for you week by week, and it gave you kind of a time frame of when you would be completed. Guided study breaks it down into 10 modules. So you do 1 module a week. Each module will cover a couple different chapters, but it's not necessarily in order. So module 1 or week 1 could include chapter 6 and chapter 13, for instance. I'm not exactly sure why they do that. I think it might be because they think that the material is related in those chapters, so they want to keep them together. I thought it was fine, but it also would have been nice to kind of just go through the book in order, but that's okay. And each module has a reading, a video, an activity, a discussion question, a quiz, and then flashcards that they give you. And then halfway through, there's also a midterm that you can do, and then at the end, there's a couple different final exams you can take. That was really great because I'm somebody who really likes structure, whether it's from me or from school or something like that. I like being told, okay, this is the assignments you have to get done every week. That being said though, I think if you're somebody who's really disciplined and you're good at creating your own schedule, your own structure, and you don't have a specific timeline, or maybe you do and you want to get it done faster than 10 weeks, you could totally do the self-study. Completing all those assignments every week was pretty fast for me. So what I did is I went through it all once, I completed the assignments, retook the quiz until I passed it. But in doing that, I was kind of just getting through the material. I wasn't necessarily absorbing everything. When I completed the 10 weeks, I definitely didn't feel ready to take the exam quite yet. Like I needed to really study the material and let it sink in. But I do think if you're somebody who learns well through going through something once or twice and you memorize it, then this could be fine. You could be ready to take the exam after the 10 weeks. So yeah, that's what I did. I did the 10 weeks, and then I think I took about 2 to 3 weeks to study. I was also working at this time, so I kind of had to go around that schedule. And I would say that I took about, I don't know, maybe 2 hours Monday through Friday, Monday through Thursday to do this, and then to also study. All right, so now on to my study tips. My very first tip, which isn't really about studying, but it's not to freak yourself out. I was reading so much online and watching so many videos, like, oh my gosh, this is impossible, I'm never gonna pass. And I'm reading these forums and it's like, I have my doctorate and I didn't pass that exam. It's just craziness. It's just relax and be confident. If you studied, if you put in the time, then this exam is totally doable. I would say it's fair. It was, it is difficult, but it's not impossible. So take a deep breath. Don't worry. If you study, you'll be okay. Number 2 is I would read the book once through. I wouldn't skim, like I'd really read it once through, and I would take notes on the key points. Or if there's something you're like, oh, that seems important, or maybe something that you don't really understand, you want to go back to, I would write that down. I wouldn't go writing down like every single fact in every chapter because you'll be overwhelmed. My third tip is to make mnemonic devices. So I know this might not work for everyone and it's kind of silly. It worked so well, especially for the posture and movement assessments. There is so much stuff to remember in those charts, and that is by far the most important thing. So if you can come up with like silly little phrases or rhymes or songs or anything, that was big. That really helped. Fourth tip is to study the flashcards they give you. I would say maybe like once or twice. And then I would go back to the notes on your key points and I just make a couple of your own flashcards to really kind of get that through. A couple chapters on a lot of different exercises. There's stretches. It has like notes next to the exercises on form and what to watch out for. I would skim those. I think most of you, if you're taking the CPT exam, you have some experience with working out or exercises or science. So some of that might be common sense, but if it's not, read it once to familiarize yourself with that. Appendix E is super helpful. It's kind of like a summary of a lot of different things. I would skim that a couple times too. And lastly, the study guide they give you like a whole study guide. I'm hoping that's included in the self-study too. That kind of just gives you an overview, which it isn't super necessary. If you have it, then use it to your advantage and just skim it, maybe highlight. Okay, now we're into the juicy stuff. What's actually on the exam? And I know this is always the most helpful, but just a disclaimer, I do know that the exam changes from person to person, and it also changes every year, I believe. They tweak some of the questions, so just keep that in mind, that even though I'm telling you some of the big key points that were on my exam, that might be different for you, but I'm hoping this will kind of help you focus on certain sections that were most important. So there's 120 questions, I believe, but 20 of those are research questions. 20 of those won't count, but you won't know which ones they are, which is kind of hard. I think from after taking the exam, I was pretty sure I knew which ones were the research questions because they were a little bit tricky and a little bit like, I don't remember reading that. So I hope those were the research questions because that would make more sense. I did this in a list starting from the beginning of the book to the end. So hopefully that helps a little bit if you're flipping through with me. So the very first thing you need to know, and they drill this into your brain, this is the whole like base of NASM, is the OPT model. And you will need to know the basics of each level, and you'll need to know what kind of falls into each one. So there's stabilization, there's strength, and there's power. They connect it back to the OPT model every single chapter. So you'll kind of get a hang of that naturally as you read the book, that I would know which exercises fall into each one, characteristics of each one. So stabilization is a little slower, higher rep. Then you have strength, which is kind of the more classic lifting weights. And then you have power, which is the more explosive movements. So definitely know that. Next is all of the planes of motion in chapter 5. Some of you might already know some of these, but there is quite a lot of them. Terminology, sagittal, transverse. You should know flexion, extension, all of those in chapter 5. I would review those and make sure you know them. The most important thing to know and to memorize is chapter 6. All of the posture and movement assessments. They gave me a assessment solutions table PDF, and I'm not sure if this is only part of the guided study or if they provide this to everyone, but if you don't have it, then I would print out the charts starting on page 135. And I would also know all of the different tests, so like the Davies test, the Shark test. That is the chapter you really, really gotta know. You gotta know those charts. I know it seems so daunting and you're like, I don't wanna memorize it. Once you get a hang of it and you really think about it, it gets easier. And this is the section I was talking about, that if you had some kind of like mnemonic device or tune or whatever that helps you remember it, that will be really great. Next is chapter 7. I would review all the different stretches, the flexibility. Table 7.6 on page 196 sums it up really good. So I would maybe print that out as like a PDF or something so you can review it. Chapter 10, the progressions table, 10.1 on page 251. I would know those. So how do you progress or regress? Exercises, how to make things more challenging or maybe less challenging for clients. And I would say for all the charts in chapter 14 that go through the number of sets, reps, tempo, I would focus most on the resistance category. I would look over the charts. A lot of them are very similar, like you'll kind of see trends in each of the columns, but I would go over that and I would definitely know the number of sets for each one more specifically, and especially the resistance category. Also the tempos. So I think it was like 4-2-1. I would know all the tempos, kind of what they stand for. Chapter 16, I was really scared that they were gonna ask specific questions on each of the different health conditions and limitations, but I wouldn't obsess over it. I wouldn't completely ignore it either, but I think I got a question about if somebody's pregnant, maybe in their 3rd trimester, what to avoid, what they should be doing. I would kind of just look at the most obvious ones. So if you're pregnant, if you have coronary artery disease, like stuff like that, I would look at the basics on what those people shouldn't be doing and what they should avoid. Chapter 19, the stages of change are super important. They ask a lot of these questions, mostly on the pre-contemplation stage. They would ask some questions too that were very similar. They were asking the same thing ultimately, but they would reword it. So just don't be tricked by that, like still go with your gut answer. The figure 19.1 really helps to break it down into steps. Chapter 19 to the behavior and the barriers to working out are good to review. Actually, to be honest, like the barriers of why people don't work out or say they can't work out has been really helpful in starting my business too, because we all have an excuse about why we can't work out. We don't have time, we don't have money, we don't have access to a gym. So I would look those over and maybe kind of keep those in the back of your mind. How to make exercise more accessible to your clients. All right, and lastly, chapter 20, the NASM code of conduct is really important. Kind of the rules you should be following. They do ask questions on like kind of what not to do as a personal trainer. So I think like when in doubt, if it doesn't sound like something you probably should be doing or recommending to a client, then pick the option that says refer them to another medical professional or their doctor or a registered dietitian or something like that. That's usually the safe bet. Unless it's like designing a workout program, then you know that's what you should be doing as a personal trainer. CEUs, so continuing education, it's 2 units every 2 years, and I think they asked that question, but it's easy to remember, 2-2. The 4 P's of marketing, I would look that over. All right, so I think that's pretty much it on the chapter breakdown of what to study for the exam and what was on my test. But I just wanted to also mention that a lot of anatomy and a lot of nutrition ask a lot about that, which was good, especially if you don't have a science background. So don't stress about that. Again, read it once, take the keynotes, but don't stress about it. Kind of conclude everything, I would say the most important chapters to focus on are 6, 7, 19, and 20. The part I want to discuss is my remote exam experience. I did it at home. It just seemed so much easier. The closest testing location was over an hour away from me. And I've taken a lot of exams online for college, so I figured it would be okay. So you book your online exam at least 48 hours in advance, I think is what it was. And you schedule the time slot you want. There was a ton of time. And it was so good and easy to use. I've used some kind of sketchy software through college that wasn't super easy and kind of confusing, but this was really straightforward. You're gonna wanna check your connection before you take the exam, check your internet, make sure everything is clear around you. You're gonna be connected to a live person, a live proctor, who is going to need to see your entire room with your camera and your laptop. Below your desk, above your desk, on your desk. They're gonna need to see both your ears. You'll have to go like this. They have to show your wrists, so take off your watch. And you'll need to put a mirror behind you. I just had like a standing cheap mirror to make sure that you're not looking at anything behind your computer. Once you complete your room check and your environment scan and everything, they will ask to take control of your computer, which I thought was kind of funny. But you kind of just sit there and they take control, they check all your tabs to make sure you don't have anything up. Totally fine, everything was all set. I did forget to silence my Mac though. So I had a couple calendar notifications go off during the exam and I was like, oh no, hopefully that's fine. So I would definitely put everything on do not disturb, maybe shut off your phone. When he's done his computer check, then he'll ask you, he or she, sorry, will ask you, are you ready to take your exam? And you'll say yes, and you'll hit go, and your little timer in the corner, multiple choice questions, you can go back to them, you can even flag them. So if you want to be like, oh, I need to go back to number 2 later on, then you can go back. How I like to do multiple choice exams that are timed and very long is I'll go through everything once with my gut answer and I'll flag the ones that I'm uncertain about, and then I'll go back to those at the end with the remaining time I have. So at least if you run out of time or anything, you have your gut answer there. It's better than no answer. Once you're completed your exam, you've checked everything, you feel pretty good about it, you have to tell your proctor. So they're alive the whole time, they'll be sitting there, and there's a chat box if you need anything, which is kind of comforting to know that somebody's there in case something goes wrong. You tell them when you're done. So you'd be like, okay, I'm ready to submit my exam. They'd be like, okay, go ahead and hit, submit. And when you hit submit, it will give you an auto notification if you passed or failed, like right then and there. Don't get your actual cert in the mail for a month for mine to come in, so there'll be a pretty big gap. That kind of wraps up everything, but I did want to say, if you fail, don't be discouraged. It's a difficult exam, it's a lot to memorize, it's a whole entire textbook. We all have busy lives, we all have to work, we have things going on. Don't let it get you down. At least if you take it once, you have a better idea of kind of what's on it next time. Retake it if you don't pass it. You will get it. Be confident and stay calm. I get so much test anxiety that sometimes it kind of messes with my brain. I get all flustered, and just your stuff and it'll be okay whether you pass or fail. I hope you all pass your first time. If you did pass or this video helped you pass, please comment that down below. That would be so amazing. And if any of you guys want this kind of list I'm referring to, breaking it down, just email me and I would just copy and paste what I have here. Questions, you can DM me on Instagram. I really hope that this video helped you. If you liked this video and you found it helpful, if you could subscribe, that would be awesome. I really appreciate it. And I hope everyone has a great day, and I'll see you in a video next week.